You're listening to the sonnet-sized version of this episode with Frank and Chris. To get access to the epic version, go to patreon.com/nerdpreneur and become a member of the
Awesome Nerdpreneur Board.
Now, enjoy the show.
Talking nerdy. We're just talking nerdy. With all this talking nerdy. Oh, come on, you wanna talk nerdy?
I got a few things I wanted to share for today's Talking Nerdy.
Yeah, what do you want to talk nerdy about?
Well, first off, I just got one thing to say, and we don't have to do one thing to say. Dune Part 2 coming out March 1st.
That's right.
Under a month away. This is going to be big. And I actually don't have much to say about this. I wanted to ask you a question. It's not a big discussion, but I had a question for you, Frank. Now, here's what it is. Dune Part 1 was a box office success, as you know. Specifically, it had a $165 million budget. $402 million worldwide was its gross revenues coming back. So it made a lot of money. A lot of people were excited about it. Dune is about prophecy and seeing the future and whether you can affect or change its fate, right? And so in Dune Part 1, it also garnered 10 nominations for the Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Original Score, Best Sound, Best Cinematography, Film Editing, Best Visual Effects, all these ones, right? And it won 6 of those categories. So right now we're talking a profit of probably $237 million and 6 Oscars. My question for you, Frank, is do you think it's going to be more successful Dune Part 2 or less successful Dune Part 2 based on those metrics? Will it make more money and win more Oscars, or will it be less?
Based on those metrics, I would say less successful, but based on a couple other things, I would say it's going to be more successful. I think it's going to be more successful because it has a good amount of a following already. It has proven itself, so people will turn up to see it anyway. But more than that, normally with sequels, we see things that just they fall on their face a lot of the time, sequels. But I don't think that'll be the case for this because it already has the story written for it. It already has everything written for it. The team is not changing because oftentimes you get changing creative hands when you do sequels and you are still writing from scratch. Frank Herbert's Dune is amazing. It's amazing.
You say that with such conviction.
Yeah. The problem is
I love
read
this movie.
so
I
long
think
ago.
it's definitely going to do better. Here's what I believe. I'm going to make this prediction right now. You can hold me to it. It wins Best Picture, and it'll be one of only 2 movies ever that are sequels to win Best Picture.
What was the other one?
The Godfather Part 2.
Yeah,
there's only ever been one sequel ever to win Best Picture. So The Godfather Part 2 and this, I think, could be it because the best part of the book is to come. And it's also got some of the best actors in it. I think there's going to be more Academy Awards.
Cast.
And I don't think this year's movies are going to be that great. I just don't. I think that there's going to be a lot less competition. Now, what's going against me is I think the Oscars hate sci-fi. So this would also be like one of the only sci-fi movies ever to win.
Don't know about that. Everything All at Once. That was a sci-fi.
Well, yeah, I guess so. But it was very hip. So
I don't mean to rain on what you just threw down.
Hey,
I am just
that's
saying,
in my favor.
I don't know that the Oscars hate sci-fi. Now, they definitely like things that are more grounded in reality. Yeah,
they're coming around to it. I think that this has enough of like the interesting political angles that it's deep enough that I think they might actually take it seriously and give it a chance, Hollywood, to win a Best Picture. And that would be pretty cool. And they love Timothée Chalamet for some reason.
So my question to you is, do you think I've seen it yet?
Dune Part 2?
No, Part 1.
You have, right? Are you?
Do you know?
No, I don't know. We've never saw it together, did we? I've seen it.
No, and
I saw it probably three times in the theater, and you were none of those people. Um,
yeah, asshole.
but well, you got to come up to the town or
You
whatever.
got to come down to Seattle.
All right. Well, we can argue about that. I will just say, when Dune comes out part 2, you better have watched Dune part 1 so that we could watch Dune part 2 and talk about it. But Dune part 2, that was what I wanted to bring up. We've got the bets, we've got the over under on whether or not it's going to be. We've made our predictions. What did you want to talk about today in Talking Nerdy?
Yeah, there's two things. The first one, I actually wanted to talk about a former guest that we had on the show. Her name is T. Her business is Creatures Who Craft. And I noticed something interesting starting January of this year. She has been doing a lot more on her stories. She's changed up her tactic, which I think is really interesting for her business. And in the past, so first off, I should preface, T is someone, when we interviewed her, what really stood out to me about the way she runs her business, well, first off, a lot of it depends on her Instagram and her following and driving sales through Instagram, because she makes a small batch of fairy wings. That's her product, or fairy wings that people can wear and take to like Ren Fair or, cosplay or however they want to use them. And she was getting traffic primarily from Instagram, but she only made like a dozen or so. And that worked out pretty well for her. Now, the last year, 2023, she kind of fluctuated in how active she was. And I think she was going through some stuff based on her social media. But now she's back and she's more active than ever. And she's taking this approach. And I want to know what you think of this approach, which is, she said explicitly, instead of focusing on getting more followers, I'm focusing on getting to know the followers I have.
Are you asking for my opinion now? That long pause was just for me to jump in here.
That long pause was for emphasis, and so I could see what Chris thinks of that approach.
Well, let me put the emphasis on the right syllable.
Please.
The thing is, I think, yeah, I mean, growing on Instagram right now sucks. It's actually just very hard. They don't want you to grow followers organically. So there's
why?
because they want you to pay for it. That's their business model. They want you to pay. They want you to pay for advertising campaigns that drive followers to you, so that when you make content that is engaging, oh cool, that's awesome. People will you're going to make content anyway. So they don't have to ever give your content to people and make it about followers. They actually don't. I don't know. I just think that there's a lot of difficulty growing organically right now. So I think that's fine. And the other thing is, a lot of people underutilize the relationship they have with their customers already. And so, yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like that might be a good pursuit to see how it goes. Might be good to check it back in with her after a little bit. But I think that's a great way to do it. What I would suggest is also to diversify where you find your clients and where you find your people, so that you're not just beholden to Instagram and one place, which is probably not always the best way to grow. Or potentially like create some great content and pick the best stuff that gets the most engagement and put driving ads to that until you do create a campaign around like your next product launch. I would suggest something along those lines, but fostering a relationship with your people that's deeper, like sending direct messages and getting to know them, like we do that at our Instagram. Like if you follow us on our Instagram, you'll get a personal message from myself or Frank welcoming you to our community, saying what's up, and then actually talking with you if you have questions about stuff and business, or if you have questions about business or nerdpreneurdom or about us, or if they just want to share stuff. I often have commented on people's posts and given them, like, hey, this is great. Do more of this stuff. Yeah. So I think that's a great way to do it. It ups the engagement in general, and generally you're going to have a better response.
The other reason I really like that she did it is because she always stood out in that conversation that conversation always stood out to me with her, because she wasn't afraid to just engage on social media with what she could, which so often we hear people feel like they need to be working nonstop for social media, and that if their mental health takes a toll, that they should just push through. We hear that kind of stuff, but she always made it clear that if it doesn't, if she doesn't have the energy, if she doesn't feel like it, she'll take a break, and she'll tell her followers, hey, I'm taking a break, and she'll come back when she's ready. And this was a really nice approach, I think, because it catered to that. It fed her willingness and desire to get to know her followers is going to create a connection, and it's going to feed her energy, her reserves to be social on social media. So I think it's actually going to create this cycle. It'll be cyclical, and feed it back into it so that she does more and more. That's my prediction. We'll see if that happens. But one of the things that we have seen across many of our interviews is that people who engage with their community feel this sense of not only community, but they also feel a sense of nurturing, of helping, and that is very rewarding for a lot of people. So I'm very excited to see where things go for her. It's only been 1 month, but we'll see.
We'll see. Definitely, it's a seasonal business, so probably with the summer, it's a good time. We're going to see how things go that way. And yeah. Hey, Nerdpreneurs, Chris coming at you. You may have just been wondering, how do I get into be a supporter of this podcast? Well, we use Patreon, and we call all of our Patreon subscribers board members, and they are part of the
Awesome Nerdpreneur Board.
Not only will board members receive extra content, extended interviews, and our undying love, in the future they'll also be invited to our Discord community, as well as monthly staff meetings where they can ask us questions, boardroom style, and have an influence not only on who we interview, but what we actually ask them in upcoming shows. Sounds pretty cool, right? Well, if you want to support us, go to patreon.com/nerdpreneur and sign up to be a member of the board today. Now back to the episode.
So what else did you bring? I feel like you brought a couple things.
I did. Well, maybe you remember this. I don't know if you actually... Did you hear about when Snoop Dogg did his recent marketing campaign where he said he was giving up smoke?
I did, and I have a comment on this, so I'm glad you're bringing it up.
Yeah, okay. So, because here's the thing, like, if you weren't aware, he basically posted for a few days or maybe a week in anticipation saying, I've given up smoke, respect my privacy at this difficult time. And it was sort of like this weird wink to like, oh, Snoop Dogg's not smoking weed again. And then like all these comments, I'm talking like millions of likes, thousands of comments of people just go in there and they're like, oh my God, I don't think he's really giving it up. Or, oh my God, he's actually giving it up. I can't believe it. Or go be you, dog. You're finally doing it. It was just so funny to see all the people coming out after it. And then just recently, the person who came up with, or then of course, down the road, after saying he was giving up smoke for like 5 days, he released an advertisement at the end of it that was for a company that makes
Solo.
Is it called Solo? Okay. So yeah, Solo, that basically has these smokeless fire pits that you can buy for your backyard. And he's like, I'm giving up smoke. And then he like lights a joint outside with his smokeless fire pit. And so this was something where people are like, oh, ha, 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 it's hilarious and everything like that. Well, here's the update. Here's what I wanted to get to is the CEO, or I think the person who came up with the idea, I think his name is John Maris, has been fired from the, so basically Maris's removal as CEO. Yeah, the CEO of this company got removed because the idea to use Snoop Dogg in this didn't actually translate into sales. And so while our unique marketing campaign, here's a quote from it. It says, while our unique marketing campaigns raised brand awareness of Solo Stove to an expanded and new audience of consumers, it did not lead to the sales lift that we had planned, which combined with the increased marketing investments negatively impacted our EBITDA. we believe there is a significant opportunity for us to build awareness, and that these new campaigns will expand our reach and benefit our brands over the long term. So I wanted to bring this to you, Frank, and just say, like, were you aware of this? Did you hear about this? And what you said you had a comment. What was your comment?
Yeah. So for my day job, we rep a company that makes a very, very similar product to Solo Stove. Solo Smokeless Fire Pit, and it is not a ripoff. In fact, it's debatable who came first. So just want to get that out of there. But I remember seeing it, and our office was all abuzz about this. I thought it was super clever. I didn't actually see the post beforehand, so it's interesting hearing that. But yeah, I can totally imagine that. I was very surprised by what you said. I did not know that the CEO was let go based on this decision. I would bet there's other things as well.
Well, here's what I saw in the comments section of this post that I read. Here's what you see: marketing was genius, but the fire pit cost $500. It's outrageous. So people are complaining about the price point, right? Marketing was great. Everyone and their mothers heard about it, but not enough people care for one of these to justify Snoop's ad price tag. So the idea of, like, well, how many people are going to buy a smokeless fire pit, right? I think this was all done around Christmas time too, right? So the idea was to get it for Christmas, and it also feels to me kind of out of season. I don't know, maybe because if it's marketed to the southern states where I guess they can do this anytime. But in Canada, like, we aren't chilling out in our backyards anytime soon. Anyone north of Kentucky, it's cold. Like,
it's definitely the wrong time of year, for sure.
It just seemed like, well, if you're going to do this, do it for like barbecue season, right? Or sometime where people are actually hanging out there. So there's that. And then, there was no value build on the front end. It was just about recognition. Yes, it's cool that, like, I think the power of influencers, and this is what they were trying to do. It's like, well, back in the day, wasn't it possible for us to just, have Snoop Dogg endorse a product and then it would be enough for people to buy it? Well, maybe, but not that much anymore. I think people are much more savvy consumers. Inflation is higher. The economy is harder. People are like, we don't have money paycheck to paycheck. There's a lot of people complaining that, like, a $500 smoker, I can't friggin' justify spending that. And what I've learned is there's just not a lot of crossover between people who have backyards and people who listen to Snoop Dogg. So
the comment about it being $500, so I had to pull it up. And so I had to fact check this because that's really high for their bonfire, but they've got a couple items. They've got a $200, a $250, a $450, and then a $600. And that's kind of what you'd expect as far as this product goes. But the thing, I mean, like, these items, yeah, they're expensive. They're not super fun as far as, like, if you got a backyard and you can do a bonfire, way more fun. These things are great if you have to try to avoid smoke. You're not going to be barbecuing on them, actually. You might do s'mores, you might do hot dogs, but you're not going to put a rack of ribs on it. It does not actually keep heat in at all. And if you really want the smokeless effect, I'm pretty sure, but should get fact checked on this, but I'm pretty sure you actually need to use pellets.
And the other thing is, like, I don't think that there was a whole lot of value built in the fire pit itself, right? There was no, oh, it's smokeless. That's cool. But the idea of, like, you can use this in your backyard. Who are we targeting? We're targeting people with backyards in cities because you can't have a fire pit, probably, right? So bring that smoke feel, like that fire feeling of being out in the woods, to your home might be a better hook than, like, Snoop Dogg uses this. Like, it's just sort of weird brand alignment. Like, I know it's clever. It was super clever. Nobody's saying it wasn't clever. It's just, could they have made that connection better? Could they have had Snoop Dogg, like, endorse it and talk about it a little bit? Or maybe, like, Snoop Dogg is the great business person here because he got paid no matter what. And he understood, oh, this is a clever idea. I don't care a shit if it works. Like, it might, but
I mean, if Snoop Dogg was out in the woods, and he's at, like, a campsite, that'd be great. I don't think he was at a campsite. I think he was in a backyard, which also makes sense for Solo Stove's audience.
Yeah. I mean, and it is one of those things where it's like awareness is big, right? I think that's cool. But then how do you cash in on that awareness? They could have done something interesting with it, right? Like maybe it was a campaign around collecting emails where then they could market those things to people who are opting into it. So maybe it was like, hey, if you want to get this exclusive smoke picture of Snoop Dogg or whatever with this smoke pit where he's smoking it. So this is a commemorative, whatever. We only have 5,000 of these or 50,000 of these we can give out, whatever it is, opt in for it, right? So then you collect leads that could potentially be interested in that fire pit. Or if you want to get a 10% discount, use Snoop code or something like that. All right. At least there was no actual next step. There was no call to action. There's no reason for me to buy anything. It was just like Snoop uses this. And I know Snoop doesn't use this. I know I think that this is like
cashed in.
This is so Snoop Dogg. He just cashed in. Like he's not using this. He's not hanging out in his backyard. He's just looking flying there and doing, his thing smoke. Like it was just, there was no next step follow up or real objective to monetize this stuff. You can't just have a clever idea.
Mm-hmm. I mean, nowadays it's so much easier to track metrics and results, and I can totally imagine how they were able to figure out, this didn't have any return on investment, or not a significant enough return on investment given the expense. And I think, yeah, there's a lesson in that. There's definitely, if you're going to get an influencer, if you, dear listener, are going to pay to get an influencer to give you a shout out, you better make sure that there is a clear and simple call to action that you have ironed out, whether it's the newsletter, a promo code, or an event that you're going to be at that aligns well with the influencer, because
or create some scarcity, or create some buzz, or some authenticity, like some sort of authority, or like just like use some sales stuff to get people to actually want it.
Some real value aside from just a chuckle, because sure, funny gets attention, but that is sometimes all it does. And in some cases, like road safety billboards, funny is really good. I was actually just hearing an article about how they
might get rid of those.
Yeah, well, they might get rid of them, but also in the past they've been successful because they're funny and they're just trying to spread awareness. They're not trying to like really get people to make a purchase on anything, so they're not trying to send them anywhere. They're just trying to get people to put the phone down.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense then if you're going to use humor for getting attention. That's what works online is, humor and booty. Like those are the two things that seem to spread on its own in the space of social media. Or controversy.
That and bad news. Yeah, controversy.
Like there are things that do spread like that. Like, but it has to piss you off, or it has to turn you on, or it has to
you gotta feel something.
Yeah, you have to have an emotional response to it, right? Whereas, these guys just put it out, give us attention, and then you know what? Their marketing plan was hope. It was a hope this works. So yeah, I think this guy might have got a little out over his skis in terms of his clever idea, and then got burned for it.
Oh, a little over his skis, like ski blades.
You've never heard that phrase before?
No, but the visual is great.
Yeah, he's a little too far out over his skis, and he's
Canadian.
He fell way down. Actually, if you want to know, the best comment I did read was, I guess the CEO got smoked.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, yeah, I like that.
All right,
that should be their marketing campaign.
Well, I don't know if we have anything else on for today's episode. Do you?
I don't know. I found this was an interesting opportunity for us to bring some nerdy things that we've stumbled upon and
nice share summary of the month, right? So awesome. Hey, we'll link everything into the show notes, so check those out. And if you want to look at any of these videos or references that we've already made, we'll put that all in the show notes for you. Follow us on our socials at Nerdpreneur Pod and Podcast on Instagram and the X,
formerly known as Twitter. And, of course, on YouTube at Nerdpreneur Podcast, where you can get all of our interviews in their video form glory.
And you can find out what book it is that I'm going to keep behind me for the next episode.
It's a new book every time. Well, everyone take care, and until next time.
Keep it nerdy.